Is vulgar language really vulgar?
Was Francis Grose really gross?
And what was a woman's commodity?
Today we are looking back at some of history's most influential dictionaries of cant, colloquialisms, and underworld slang on this Words Unravelled guide to the vulgar tongue.
Welcome to another Words Unravelled. I'm Rob Watts from the YouTube channel Rob Words.
And I'm Jess Ferris, author of etymology books, including Useless Etymology, and today we are getting vulgar on Words Unravelled, not with swear words necessarily, though there's a little bit of that here and there, but with underworld slang and cant, and particularly some dictionaries documenting these with questionable accuracy.
Yeah, we're going to be focusing on what I think Jess and I share as a real favourite of ours as far as dictionaries go, because who hasn't got a favourite dictionary?
Oh, right, of course.
We're going to take a good hard look at Francis Grose's classical dictionary of the vulgar tongue, but we're also going to look at some other dictionaries that have tried to achieve the same thing. That is recording the vernacular, recording the underworld terms, the terms that the fancy dictionaries like Samuel Johnson's, for example, did not include for sake of decency. I will say, Jess, that I was on my own researching this, and boy, did I blush at some of the things that we are going to talk about. Yes, we should point out that the title of the book is A Classical Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue, but vulgar doesn't mean what it means to us now, right, Jess?
Right. Vulgar means common. It's from the Latin vulgaris, meaning of or belonging to the common people, ordinary, shared by all. It's one of those words like villain that used to mean something standard, something ordinary, and now means, same with like crude too, meant just like raw, basic, and then
churl is another one, right? Churl's a good word for a good old word that just meant like a non-gentry person, but then comes to mean something negative. But let's talk about Francis Grose and his dictionary, published first in 1785. So just 30 years after Samuel Johnson has published his very famous dictionary. Obviously not the first dictionary of the English language, but a very influential one. But Francis Grose goes about compiling his in a very different way, doesn't he?
He does. He's not the first vulgar lexicographer, which we'll get to.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, he draws inspiration from books that have come before that are even filthier from both sides of the English Channel, I will say as well.
These are very editorialized, and Grose in particular has one of the more colorfully editorialized ones.
Yeah, indeed. So he formulates this by traveling around the countryside. He's living in London, but also going out at night with his friend Tom Cocking, which is not a funny name at all, and just listening to what the dockers, what the sex workers, what the publicans, what everyone in the street is actually saying, and then putting them all in this dictionary, which reads very differently to Samuel Johnson's, because Samuel Johnson could be a little bit of a prude, I guess.
Samuel Johnson was also, I think, more academic in his approach and background. So Grose probably had a classical education when he was young, very young, but he was mostly a military guy. So he was traveling around a lot in the military, meeting all of these folks. But at the same time, he started drawing. He was an accomplished illustrator and draftsman. And his first book that he published was called The Antiquities of England, which was this big, heavily illustrated book from the 1770s, which documented architectural sites. But it was written for like popular readers.
He continued to do the antiquarian stuff right up until his death. And it was actually while traveling around Scotland that he met his friend, Robert Burns, the poet, very famous Scottish poet, wrote the poem that inspires the lyrics to Auld Lang Syne, for example. He wrote about Francis Grose quite a bit, but he couldn't do it without pointing out that Francis Grose, in a strange turn of nominative determinism, was really fat, right? He was a corpulent gentleman. If you look at pictures of him, and apparently it's something that Francis Grose used to like to joke about, was the fact that his name was Grose and that he was gross in size. So, okay, so he writes this about Francis Grose. When Francis Grose is basically on his deathbed, And he writes a little poem for him, which is cute. It's an epigram. He says, "The devil got notice that Grose was a-dying. So whip at the summons, old Satan came flying. But when he approached where poor Francis lay moaning, and saw each bedpost with its burden a-groaning, astonished, confounded, cried Satan, by God, I'll want him ere I take such a damnable load." And he just can't, even when he's eulogizing about the guy, he can't help but mention that the guy is big. And for example, he described him on another occasion as a fine, fat, foggle white, of stature short, but genius bright. He did adore him.
I don't know that Grose would find that offensive. I think he might find it funny because everything in this book is funny.
Jess, check this out.
Where are you going?
I'm down here, Jess, because I have just upgraded my desk setup to a standing desk from this video's sponsor, Flexi Spot. I got the E7 model with the bamboo desktop, and it's a massive improvement on what I was using before. It's really sturdy. It's pretty. It took me less than an hour to set up, and it is strong. It easily handles my entire computer setup and a whole load of heavy dictionaries too. But the best thing about it is it has memory. So though now it is clearly far too high, I can, with the push of a button, get it back down to my ideal setting for recording this podcast.
FlexiSpot specializes in all kinds of ergonomic furniture, including desks and chairs that can help you live or work more comfortably. And with the FlexiSpot Black Friday and Cyber Day sales, you can get up to 80% off. And in fact, there are even chances to get 100% off your order. How do we do that?
Yeah, they've got some competitions running on the website that are worth checking out. You can explore the E7 and all of their deals on the FlexiSpot website. And don't forget to use our special code YTE730 for $30 off. They also, by the way, have site-wide discounts for medical workers, students and grads, teachers, and the military. So if you qualify for any of those, definitely take advantage of it. And the desk comes with up to 15 years of warranty and a 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's well worth giving it a try.
Enjoy.
Let's actually start talking about what is in the books. That's what we're really here for, aren't we? Some of these amusing terms that he picked up from the streets of London and the surroundings.
In the 1811 edition, he says that he gathered words from soldiers on the long march, seamen at the capstern, and ladies disposing of their fish, as well as beggars, prostitutes, gamblers, and thieves. And then also, like, he pulled in several other dictionaries worth of, and glossaries worth of words from earlier sources too. But it includes criminal cant, sexual slang, bodily humor, and gallows expressions with jokey explanations and some self-censorship, but also not.
And how naughty do we go here, Jess? Do we go straight into the naughty stuff, or do we lower ourselves in with some of the mean stuff, or some of the funny stuff that's in this dictionary?
Let's start with the general funny stuff, like the Act of Parliament, which is a military term for small beer, 5 pints of which by an Act of Parliament a landlord was formally obliged to give each soldier free. And then, so we've got like political humor, and then we have the Admiral of the Narrow Seas, a person from who from drunkenness vomits into the lap of the person sitting opposite him.
Yeah, he's also got a Kent Street ejectment, which is to take away the street door, so the front door of a house. He says it's a method practiced by the landlords of Kent Street, Southwark, when their tenants are above a fortnight's rent in arrears. They just take their door away. I love Kent Street ejectment. He describes eggs as cackling farts, which is a real beaut. Hoddy-doddy, all arse and no body, he describes as a phrase for a short, clumsy person, either male or female. And then there's this wonderful word that I'm sure you'll know, and I think I've had it in my newsletter at one point, but grog blossom is a term that he picks up, which is a carbuncle or a pimple in the face caused by drinking. So basically, a big swollen, ruddy nose from drinking too much alcohol. It's called a grog blossom on the streets of London in the 18th century.
There are lots of insulting words for people's jobs, like a fart catcher is a valet or a footman who walks behind their master or mistress. So they're their fart catcher. A tormentor of sheepskin is a drummer. A tormentor of catgut is a fiddler. A thingstable is a constable, but you want to avoid saying the first syllable in the title of that officer, which in sound has some similarity to an indecent monosyllable, which he mentions the monosyllable a lot. And we can get into that in a minute.
You know what that monosyllable is? Another term that he has is for a schoolmaster, which he calls a phlebotomist. Probably a play on phlebotomist. Because he also says, he also calls them bum brushers, right? So basically, he's accusing schoolmasters of indecency.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a naughty book.
He mentions he has a line item for bothered or both-eared, which is when you are talked to at both ears by different persons at the same time and therefore confused or confounded. And it seems to be a folk etymology of the actual word bother, which interestingly, though, does mean, like, it's ultimately from an Irish word meaning to deafen. So similar spirit.
He also describes a load of different crimes using the terms that are used, in the criminal underworld for those crimes. But they're crimes that you don't even know exist. For example, to gibber the kibber is a crime that he describes. He describes to gibber the kibber as a method of deceiving seamen by fixing a candle and lantern round the neck of a horse, one of whose 4 feet is tied up. This at night has the appearance of a ship's light. Ships bearing towards it run on shore and being wrecked or plundered by the inhabitants. This diabolical device, as he calls it, it is said is practiced by the inhabitants of our western coasts. So he's having a dig at the people living on the west of Britain. And then there's another crime called money dropping, which is where a cheat drops some money, which they then pretend to find just before some country lad, as he puts it, and by way of giving him a share of their good luck, entice him into the public house where they and their confederates cheat or rob him of what money he has about them. So you pretend to lose some money. When you pick it up, you go, oh, look, I found some money. Come with me. Let's go spend it in the pub. And then you take the guy to the pub and you rob him blind.
Could we address one of the books that preceded this one real quick? Because I think this is relevant to the criminal slang we find in this book, because a lot of it came from a 1567 work called A Caveat or Warning for Common Cursitors, vulgarly called vagabonds. Cursitor means runner. This is this work by Thomas Harmon, which was, like I said, first published in the 1500s. And he was a gentleman and a landowner who was actually kind of horrible based on this book.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't collecting these terms, if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he was collecting them to sort of document them. He was collecting these criminal terms so that he could understand what criminals were saying and then, throw the book at them, basically.
Yeah, so this is amid an era of like mid-Tudor concern over quote-unquote masterless men, vagrancy, and then a series of vagrancy laws that were put into place to, along with all of these books that came out around this time, documenting vagabond life and practices, this taxonomy of like types of rogues. There were a number of these, canting glossaries, rogue tales, sometimes presented almost like what you would see today as trashy reality TV, because there was almost a leering aspect to it, hearing about these like criminal underworlds if you were of a higher society class. And his taxonomy, Harmon's, includes upright men, senior professional rogues, rufflers, former soldiers, priggers of prancers, horse thieves, counterfeit cranks.
Priggers of prancers. I like that one. Could you just prig my prancer?
No, really. And there are a ton of these. He has doxies and morts, which are female rogues, bawdy baskets, who are female peddlers, dummerers, who are fake mutes, people who couldn't speak. And then counterfeit cranks. And I bring this up. These are fake epileptics, he says, people who pretend to be epileptic so that they can trick people. One of the reasons I say this person is terrible is because he has a story about a guy named Nicholas Blunt, alias Nicholas Jennings. And he published this list of like 250 people he considered to be vagabonds and criminals and things. And he met Nicholas Blunt one time. This was a real person who was at the very least mentally ill. He had recently been discharged from the psychiatric hospital at Bedlam. And after seeing him bleeding from a fall after an epileptic fit, which Harmon believed was fake, he had Nicholas chased across the countryside. Later, this guy goes to sea. He comes back to London under a new name, well-dressed as a hatter, which it seems he actually was. Like, he became a tradesman, got a house, got married, reinvented his life. But apparently he got into it with Harmon's printer the year after the first edition of the book was published, probably because his name was in a list of criminals. Harmon recognizes him, has him arrested, and gets him whipped, pilloried, and imprisoned for the rest of the year. But he also includes this dictionary of cant words. He says, "Here I set before the good reader the lewd, lousy language of these loitering lusks and lazy laurels, wherewith they buy and sell the common people as they pass through the country." So this is a nefarious project aimed to rid the land of its undeserving poor and expose the tricks and disguises of rogues and beggars. And all of these words ended up in Grose's book too.
The word cant has come up a lot, hasn't it, so far? I feel as though we should just explain what cant means, because we have various terms like cant, slang, argot as well. There are sort of nuances to the meanings of these words, right?
Absolutely. So cant is specialized jargon, or what they call a cryptolect, by a particular group that's meant to create sort of an in-group and distinguish these folks from outsiders. It has two potential origins. Maybe both are true too. One of them is that it's from the Latin cantus, meaning song. Old French and Norman French also used similar terms to mock or make fun of friars chanting, and then it was extended to the sort of sing-song style of speech among people who were considered, who had their own in-groups, like travelers and so-called vagabonds and things. But it also may have influence from similar Irish and Scottish Gaelic words, meaning speech or talk, referring to the itinerant communities who came through England from Ireland and Scotland.
Yeah, and then we've got argot as well. These are all terms for what we might call sort of sociolects or something like that. Now, terms that are specific to certain groups.
An argot is lexically, it's a little more specific than cant. It's a lexically altered variety of a language. The syntax and the grammar is relatively standard. Keywords get replaced or changed in a patterned way. It's specifically like coded language. Cant is broader, basically. It can be any sort of in-group type of speech, whereas argot is specifically coded and swapping out words, but there's a lot of overlap.
We were talking about the books that inspired Francis Grose, and there is one that he credits at the start of Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue, the first edition of it that comes out in 1785. And it's a French book by a guy called Philibert Joseph Leroux. And it's called Dictionnaire comique, satirique, critique, burlesque. Burlesque? How do you pronounce that actually in French? Libre et proverbial. You can probably work out what all of those words mean. But basically, it's a very similar thing to Grose's dictionary, what he ends up producing. It's a list of terms from the Parisian underworld. And I looked through it and I just blushed and blushed and blushed. I opened one page. These are both on one page. So you have the word cliquet. I had to double check this with my wife, which was humiliating. Cliquet means, pour partie naturelle, testicule génitoire, means your balls. And another one, there's just a random page I opened it, and what the word that I was confronted with was the verb clitoriser, which means
I can imagine what that means.
What it means. We don't have a straightforward verb for that, do we?
I approve of this term.
But anyway, Grose says, I kind of wanted to write something a bit like this dictionary of comic, satirical, critical, burlesque, free and proverbial words from France by Leroux.
Grose is more fun than Harmon. Harmon is a nasty person. He's not being very kind at all to these people. Whereas Grose is reveling in these terms. He's having a blast with them. He thinks they're fun and funny. He likes using them. and like some of them, you'll still find him referenced in like the OED and in any etymology dictionary because he's the first recorded instance of some of these terms.
And this is a really key difference between his dictionary and that of Samuel Johnson's, because Samuel Johnson is compiling his dictionary using citations from literature. So if a word doesn't appear somewhere written down, it's not in his dictionary. Whereas kind of the whole point of Grose's dictionary is these words do not appear anywhere else written down. They're words that he's found being used in the vernacular, and he's defined them as best he can. I've already taken us into the gutter, so we may as well wallow there a little bit. Let's talk about some of the sort of naughtier words in Grose's dictionary. You go first, Jess.
Sure, yeah. So he has lots of words for lady parts. Many of them are referenced using the term the monosyllable, which is the C word, which you can watch our swear word episode to hear that one in all its glory and all of the history behind it. But we'll try to keep this one, I don't know, at least the 18th century R-rated, but modern PG-13. Anyway, but lady parts include, let's see, so for bosoms, we have apple dumpling shop, cat heads, ditties, bushel bubbies, just dairy, Eve's custom house, which is my favorite. It's where
just dairy.
Dairy. She sported her dairy. She pulled out her breast. And then my favorite is Eve's custom house, though, where Adam made his first entry. And then most often, aside from if he mentions the southern portion of a woman, he is talking about either the monosyllable or her commodity, which he also describes as crinkum crankum, dumb glutton, fruitful vine, bottomless pit, brown madam or Miss Brown.
Brown madam.
Yes. He doesn't explain Brown Madam, but he does explain Black Joke, a popular tune to a song having for the burden her black joke and belly so white. Figuratively, the black joke signifies the monosyllable, he says.
The black joke.
Mm-hmm. There's also Buckinger's boot, which he says is a word for the monosyllable. Matthew Buckinger was born without hands and legs, notwithstanding which he drew coats of arms very neatly and could write the Lord's Prayer within the compass of a shilling. He was married to a tall, handsome woman and traversed the country, showing himself off for money.
Jess, I thought we were going to each come with sort of a handful of these ruder ones, and you've just thrown a volley.
That was only a handful of them. There are more.
Dozen.
We haven't even gotten to men's parts.
Oh. Go on, then.
All right. Lobcock, which is specifically a large, relaxed penis, also a dull or inanimate fellow. We talked about Rantalian, one whose scrotum is so relaxed as to be longer than his penis, or whose shot pouch is larger than the barrel of his piece. Also, we've got, let's see, although we have tickletail is a word for a schoolmaster again, it's also...
I don't want to be...
Rob has just sunk down to the lower end of his screen here.
Thanks to my Flexi Spot desk, I can now return.
While he's on his way up, I could talk about the fact that clicket is listed as copulation of foxes and thence used in a canting sense for that of men and women too.
Are we done?
If you want to be. It also has one of the first recorded instances of dildo, which is fun. Though that one, no, I'm sorry, that's not true because we've discussed this one before. It also it's in a poem from like the 1400s or something as well.
Yeah, dildo is just like with a fa la la with a dildo,
Right. It also probably like meant to evoke a diletto, a woman's delight.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So he claims, but it's more of one of those like fa la las.
Well, I mean, you demolished my list just there anyway, which I'm relieved I didn't have to define lobcock. But one that I did find is to box the Jesuit and get cockroaches, which is a C term for masturbation, a crime, it is said, much practiced by the reverend fathers of that society, to box the Jesuit and get cockroaches.
One of my favorite ones is bread and butter fashion. One slice upon the other. John and his maid were caught lying bread and butter fashion.
Oh, that's quite sweet.
Right. And then to blow the groundsels, to lie with a woman on the floor. Groundsels is the foundation or lowest part of any structure. So implying one's panting breath is exhaled at ground level.
Very good. Very good.
It also contains rut and screw and shag and to whap, which is to copulate or to beat, which I think is interesting because there's like a relatively famous song that came out a couple of years with that acronym.
Wait, yeah. It's not from
He doesn't
that,
present it as an acronym, no.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It rhymes.
I would definitely have dropped my copy if I'd seen that acronym spelled out in the page.
He just meant it as like an onomatopoetic sound, the sound of copulation, as he says.
Oh, that's almost worse. It's almost worse. There are other ones where he's just kind of mean.
Yes.
Can I just point out that he does apologize for the rudeness of his book, particularly in the first edition. It's republished in 1811 with a lot more rude words in it. But before that, he goes out of his way to say, look, sorry, there's some rude words in this. What he says in his introduction is, to prevent any charge of immorality being brought against this work, the editor, him, begs leave to observe that when an indelicate or immodest word has obtruded itself for explanation, he has endeavored to get rid of it in the most decent way possible. It's just like, that's why it's just like, they will just say, the monosyllable. Right. just don't go any deeper into it. I wish I hadn't said deeper. But yeah, he did add those in. He also apologizes for some of the values expressed because, a lot of these terms are enormously sexist. They're racist. Just look up IR in the dictionary and see how many horrible terms for Irishmen they've got.
Ireland is at one point called the urinal of the planets because it rains so much.
He's called Scotland itch or scratch land as well. Well, I say he does, but this is kind of the point. He says, the editor likewise begs leave to add that if he has had the misfortune to run foul of the dignity of any body of man, profession, or trade, it is totally contrary to his intention, and he hopes the interpretations given to any particular terms that may seem to bear hard upon them will not be considered as his sentiments, but as the sentiments of the persons by whom such terms were first invented, or those by whom they are used. He's basically saying, I'm just recording these. These are not my thoughts.
That sounds like between the first and second editions, a couple of people had some words with him.
I suspect so. But I mean, speaking of some of the sort of more mean things that he has in there, his definition of bitch is actually quite interesting.
Ooh, tell me.
It says a she-dog or doggess, the most offensive appellation that can be given to an English woman. I don't know why the word English is in there. Even more provoking than that of whore. So basically, he's saying that this is the worst possible word you could use towards a woman.
One, I guess it sounds a lot sillier now, but I'm sure it was kind of a nasty term back in the day, or I don't know, maybe it's just meant to be silly, but as a twiddlepoop was a word for an effeminate looking fellow.
Oh, yeah. So there are a few of these that they're really sort of judgmental about how people look. There's a Captain Queernabs is one of them, which is a shabby, ill-dressed fellow, as he describes it. Captain Queernabs. And then there's like terms for threatening people as well, which are quite useful. There's this phrase that he quotes that is oil of gladness. Like, well, what could that possibly mean? It sounds delightful. He gives an example of how you might use it. He says, I will anoint you with the oil of gladness. Ironically spoken for, I will beat you.
That's a lot less nasty than I thought it was going to be. That's good. Good. Excellent.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Still quite mean, I would say. Yes. It's a good way to threaten someone.
It's much meaner. I thought it was going to be dirty.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That doesn't surprise me. Jess, does not surprise me.
Some other dictionaries in this vein, like the one by John Camden Houghton, a dictionary of slang, cant, and vulgar words from the 19th century, were originally published anonymously. This one was published as a London antiquary, but he may have done that because to divert attention from the fact that he also anonymously published a lot of erotica. So maybe till, get people off his trail. That one is interesting too, though. It has a larger sections on things like backslang and how they work, and things like rhyming slang too. It's well documented in Houghton's work in particular. It has a list that I had never even heard of, like Abraham's willing, a shilling, all afloat, a coat, artful dodger, a lodger, plow the deep, go to sleep, puddings and pies, or mince pies are the eyes, read and write to fight, and then round the houses, which is trousers, which is a vulgar pronunciation of vulgar, he says, of trousers.
It's a vulgar pronunciation of trousers. Does it mean it's like a vulgar pronunciation?
He means it's like a common pronunciation. So he has like rogue and villain is short for a shilling, right, which is a common or vulgar pronunciation of shilling.
I see. Yeah, I've got you. Because so much of this comes out of the criminal underworld, it made me think about Polari. Are you aware of Polari?
No, tell me.
Well, Polari is best known as London gay slang, and I would describe it as coming from the criminal underworld, only insofar as homosexuality was illegal in England and Wales until like 1967. That's when they first made it legal to have gay sex. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, it happened even later. And so in the 20th century, you have this form of slang that takes hold is particularly in London among the gay community to avoid being detected, or to be able to talk about the sort of things that they were, because it would be obvious when someone was speaking it because it's so sort of flamboyant, but you wouldn't know what they were saying. It forms out of what was actually a slang sometimes called parlieri, but also sometimes known as Polari, which was a theatrical or circus slang, but it's adopted by the gay community, and it's got bits of Cockney rhyming slang in it. It's got bits of Italian in it. It's got bits of Yiddish. It's got bits of Latin in it. And it is immensely colorful. And it has given us words. For example, the word naff is first recorded in the context of Polari. Now, this is one of those words that some people will attribute an acronym to. They'll say, oh, it's for not available for effing. It's not that. I mean, it's almost certainly not that. And you won't find like a reputable source that backs up that idea. There was this radio show called Round the Horn. One of the stars of it was a guy called Kenneth Williams, who was very famous, but the other guy that starred opposite him in these sketches that featured two gay men called Julian and Sandy. So you had Hugh Paddock, who played Julian, and then Kenneth Williams, who played Sandy. And the earliest written citation is in a script for that of the word naff, and it's them saying, I couldn't be doing with a garden like this. I mean, all them horrible little naff gnomes. Right, so that's where the word naff comes from. I don't know how much use the word naff gets over in the States. Is it a term that you use for something that's incredibly sort of painfully uncool? Well, it's a word that we do use quite a lot in Britain now. But let me just read to you a passage that is written in Polari. So this is not contemporary with when Polari was at its peak. It's all but died out now. But this was written by Paul Baker, who's written a lot about Polari. And he wrote this book, Fabulosa, which is a history of Polari, this gay language.
Cool.
And in it, he sort of creates a story and writes it in Polari. See how much of this you can get, and then I'll tell you what some of the terms mean. But it's, someone tells Gloria that the screen queen has been caught with her lally drags around her ankles at the cottage in the dilly, aka the meat rack, but her savvy manager kept it out of the papers somehow. She's playing it like she's the snow queen, but her orbs are darting around at all of the bona omi palomes when she thinks no one's vardering.
Okay, I got the first half. It's an actress has been caught with her, I don't know, with her knickers down. Definitely getting around. And she's trying to hush it up, and her manager's trying to help her out, but she can't manage it. But I don't know, like I lost it about halfway through.
Well, I mean, so it's not an actress, it's a gay man, right?
Right,
so
okay, right.
A queen is a gay man. So let me...
But did he say screen queen?
Screen queen. Yeah, exactly. Someone famous.
Like a drag artist or a famous drag artist or something like that.
Well, yeah, so the word drag turns up in there. I'll do it now with a bit of an explanation. So someone tells Gloria that the screen queen, as we've just discussed, has been caught with her lally drags around her ankles. Yeah, so you're right. So lallies are your legs and drags are your clothes. It's where we get the idea of getting dressed up in drag, is, it's putting on clothes. So your lally drags are literally your trousers. So we have this phrase caught with your trousers around your ankles that we use in English. That means, caught with your trousers down. It says, at the cottage in the dilly. So a cottage is a public toilet where men meet to have sex. And the dilly is Piccadilly or Piccadilly Circus, aka the meat rack. A meat rack is just sort of somewhere where fellas go to strut, basically. But her savvy manager, savvy, we know what this means. I just think of Jack Sparrow, but this is the same meaning of it. A very smart manager kept it out of the papers somehow. She's playing it like she's the Snow Queen. So you can take Snow Queen as meaning one or two. I don't know which one Paul Baker means here. It can just mean like sort of icy, or it can also sometimes, I think, mean a gay man who is attracted to straight men. But anyway, she's playing it like she's the Snow Queen, but her orbs are darting around at all the bona omi polones. So orbs are your eyeballs, as you might expect. Yeah. Bona is the general purpose Polari word for good or handsome or beautiful. As I mentioned, there's Italian references in here. Omi polone is a compound of omi, meaning man, and polone, meaning woman. And omi polone is a gay man, a man-woman. That's how they describe themselves. And it's not insulting. It's just the Polari term for a gay man. When she thinks no one is vardering. So vardering is looking. So basically, you're onto the right ideas. Someone's been caught. An
actor who may or may not be out is perhaps caught doing these things.
Well, because no one is out because it's illegal. So they've been caught basically committing sexual acts, committing the wrong word to use, but carrying out sexual acts in a toilet in central London. Their manager has done well to keep it out of the papers. Meanwhile, they're just looking around at all of the men vardering with their orbs, all of the gay men. You can see how, if you heard it spoken quickly, you wouldn't really be able to keep up with it, but it's kind of pretty. And like mince is like the Polari word for walking, and there are other terms like absolutely fantabulosa, which means perfect, or Aunt Nell is to hear something. They're referred to their fathers as their aunties, which again is just a sort of way of protecting oneself from saying something, that could get them into trouble. They call a drunkard a bevy homie. And they also used to call eggs cackle farts. But really the whole point of the language is protection, but it's also a form of, it's offensive act as well. It's like we can use this speech and it's a sort of a way of empowering ourselves to say what we mean and what we think and what we're doing, despite what the law doesn't allow us to do. I think it's fascinating.
South African queer communities and urban environments also have a cant like this, or a cant like language called Gael that does similar things, and it's to protect yourself from the law and from ostracization and things. In the 1970s, Michael Halliday, the linguist, wrote about anti-languages, and I don't think we would call them that today because it kind of implies that they're not legitimate in some way, but they totally are. They're complete ways of speaking. But the idea is an anti-language is a form of an existing language that arises inside of an anti-society, which is an intentionally separate community of people who are ostracized, people who aim to create a separate social order, or sometimes to do nefarious things. So these get grouped together with like criminal underworld slang because some of the aspects of their community are illegal, for better or worse, depending on, what you're talking about. But I think it's a little interesting to see the way that he described the criteria for an anti-language. It's that there's a presence of a self-conscious anti-society, and self-conscious not meaning like emotionally self-conscious, but aware of itself. Heavy relexicalization where grammar stays the same, but vocabulary shifts, reliance on conversation to maintain a separate social reality, and continuous overlap between everyday language and the anti-language counterpart. So it borrows from other languages, it builds unconventional compounds, it builds its own suffixes, inverts syllables, and then performs consonant substitutions. So the familiar grammar ends up being retooled for this like in-group solidarity.
Right. So that's an interesting thing. That's the only obvious grammatical change I noticed from Polari is one that has seen a resurgence and is now very common in gay speech today. And that is using the pronoun she for anyone.
Mhm.
Right, absolutely anyone, and that is from Polari. In fact, Polari is probably now in the best position it's been for several decades, just because so many terms from Polari are now on people's lips because of the way that attitudes towards all kinds of sexuality have changed, and the television programs that have come with it. We all know about drag and
like
using
celebration
she
of drag. It's
to
great.
mean him. It's seen something of a revival, which is kind of interesting, and welcome. But it's welcome that it's able to sort of resurface in a very different climate.
I was talking a minute ago about how words get rearranged and played with. And one of the ways that's been documented throughout history, but in particular in some of these, in particular in a 19th century dictionary that I mentioned a minute ago, is backslang, which, according to Houghton, who I mentioned a minute ago, who wrote the Dictionary of Modern Slang, Cant, and Vulgar Words in 1859, he documented the quote unquote secret language of London costermongers, people who sell food and stuff from hand carts, which he said was like 30,000 to 40,000 people at the time. Backslang is basically saying words backwards, but also not, or pronouncing them in an interesting backwards way to get around, say, legal parameters, or to just create an in-group where you can talk about customers and things without tipping anyone off. So, for example, the word Burke is a crib or a house, so to speak. It's backwards for crib, but it became house. And then cool is to look in some cases. Dab is bad. Deb is bed. Esclop is the police. So you see that one, for example, is not exactly pronounced backwards because that might be too obvious. So you create Esclop. If you're talking about a girl and you don't want her to know, then you might call her the Elrig. You might talk about a woman as a Namau or something like that. Or you might mention a penny as a Yenip. Some of them get a little twisted, like you might mention a pound is a Dunop, things like that. So it's just a good example, I think, of how some of the wordplay ends up coming to life in a way that we talk about less often.
And if I could just bring us back full circle, Jess, to Francis Grose's dictionary, given what you've just been saying, I want to mention his definition of the word gibberish, which I think is really interesting because he doesn't define it as nonsense as we think of it today. He defines it as the cant language of thieves and gypsies, sometimes called peddlers French and St. Giles Greek. So it's exactly what we've been talking about. But also, he says gibberish likewise means a sort of disguised language formed by inserting any consonant between each syllable of an English word, in which case it is called the gibberish of the letter inserted. So if F, it is F gibberish. If G, the G gibberish. As in the sentence, how do you do? How dog you dog. I'm very good at this.
You do.
Yeah, so it turns out when I do it, it is gibberish. But there we go. And on that, Jess, I think we should close our vulgar dictionaries and put them away until next time.
Excellent.
And remember, you can get up to 80% off standing desks and ergonomic chairs in FlexiSpot's Black Friday and Cyber Day sales. Mention Words Unravelled at checkout and use the code YTE730 to get an extra $30 off an E7 standing desk like I have.
Yes, you too can upgrade and downgrade yourself, just like we do on Words Unravelled.
Bye-bye.